Hey guys, it's Lou. How's everybody doing? I'm back today for a Vinyl Finds video. I've got about 15 albums to show. About 10 of them are from Flea Market Hall and 5 are online purchases. Okay? The first one, I have Bessie Smith. Unfamiliar with this artist. She is called on this album here Mother of the Blues, and I've also read some stuff that she's also known by the name Empress of the Blues. And this is recordings from the late 20s. It's described as, in Rate Your Music, when I was reading up on it, her material is described as a term that I'd never heard before, vaudeville blues or piano blues. But to me, this is much more jazz. I know there's sort of blurred lines there between jazz and blues, but this is very much, to me, more, if I had to describe it, I would describe it as jazz. Piano-led jazz with some horns as well. But this is really good. So this is early stuff. Obviously, this is not an original or anything like that. This is a comp of material that she recorded in the late 20s. And again, very unfamiliar to me, but pretty good. I'm getting used to this. This is going to take a few plays. Bessie Smith. And next, staying with jazz, an artist that I think now has become the jazz artist that I have the most vinyl of, and that's Louis Armstrong. And this is the Town Hall Concert Plus, Louis Armstrong and his orchestra. It's being billed as. This is a combination of live recordings and studio recordings. There's 12 tracks on this, split down the middle between live and studio, recorded in both 46 and 47. It's called and his orchestra, but I don't know if I'd call it an orchestra. It depends what your definition of orchestra is. To me, on these recordings, he's got anywhere from 7 to 9 players, including himself, and this is really good. This is my 8th Louis Armstrong album that I've found. All of them are used, all of them for a decent price. This was $5. It's got some songs that I was familiar with on here, like Rockin' Chair, Ain't Misbehavin', Pennies from Heaven, St. James Infirmary. So this is pretty good. Out of the 8 Louis Armstrong albums that I have, I don't have too many songs that repeat on those 8. So always on the lookout for Louis Armstrong, who's probably my second favorite jazz artist after Miles Davis. And this is very accessible for anybody who's getting into jazz. Louis Armstrong in general is very accessible. Great vocals, great trumpet. The trumpet playing is very lyrical. It's not your out there free jazz kind of stuff at all. And the players that he's accompanied with are also very lyrical as well on clarinet, trombone, that sort of thing. The next one I have is a comp. I've been looking for this artist. This is Tommy James and the Shondells. While that picture on there is, I believe, of a 70s Tommy James, sort of got a little bit of an Elvis feel with the suit and the chest and everything. The material on this is from mid-60s to late 60s. And the thing about Tommy James and the Shondells, I was unfamiliar with his material, and I really only know his songs through cover songs that other artists did. And I'm familiar with 3 songs of his. The song that I like the most is Crimson and Clover, which I know from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I love that song. It's probably my favorite Joan Jett and the Blackhearts song. And his version is really good as well. This is sort of sunshine pop, maybe a little psych pop thrown in there as well. So Crimson and Clover was one song that I knew through the cover version. The other couple songs, Moni Moni, which of course I knew through the Billy Idol version. And then the last one, I Think We're Alone Now, which I knew through Tiffany. So all from the 80s. I like Tommy James' original versions as well. And but I have to admit, I got to know those songs through the artists who did cover versions of them. This is the 20 greatest hits. That was released in '76, but like I said, it's from his '60s material. Next, I have a live album from a band that this is my fourth vinyl for this band, or fifth vinyl record. This is Emerson, Lake and Palmer and their live album, Pictures at an Exhibition. I didn't know this was a live album. I actually thought this was an actual album because I didn't recognize any of the songs on here. Usually when a band does a live album, you'd recognize some of their songs if you're familiar with their discography. But from what I've read, this is a live album where they're covering a suite, a classical piece by a Russian composer. Don't recall the name, but they're covering that Russian composer's instrumental material, and they've added some lyrics of their own to it and some instrumental passages of their own as well. But it does sound very symphonic, very classic, mixed with rock. Yeah, this is really good. I mean, it really allows the band to highlight their chops, especially Keith Emerson. But pick this up for $4, and like I said, this is my fifth Emerson, Lake and Palmer release. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this one. But again, I'm unfamiliar with any of the tracks on this, so it'll take me a while to get fully into this one. The next one, saw a video from James Griffiths a while back, is part of a series that he's doing where he's picking some artists and he's saying collecting this artist in the wild. And he did, I think, one or two videos on Roy Orbison, and I found this. I've been looking for Roy Orbison ever since then. I only had a greatest hits prior to this, but I picked this one up, which is Roy Orbison Sings. This is a bit latter day Roy Orbison. I think Roy Orbison's heyday, from what I know, is more in the 60s. This is a release from 1972, but this is a decent album. It doesn't have any sort of his well-known hits on here, like Crying, Pretty Woman, those kind of things. But this is a good album, and I'll continue to pick up Roy Orbison if I can find him for a decent price. This particular one was $4. So Roy Orbison Sings from 1972. And an album that I've actually had on my want list for a little while. I've seen it quite a few times out in the wild, but always waiting for the right price. It's a double album by Todd Rundgren, and I think most of you guys know this album, Something Anything. This is from 1972. I've got a few other Todd Rundgren in my collection. I've got A Wizard, a True Star, which I think is his best album. And I've also got his first Utopia album, which is also quite excellent. I was unfamiliar with this. This is from 1972, but the production on this is fabulous. Really digging this so far, and I was able to find this a double album for $5. And next we have a Canadian band from 1984, and this same album was shown by Cameron on his channel. Cameron's out, I believe he's in Winnipeg if I'm not mistaken. Sorry Cameron if I'm wrong about that. This is the Pocket Orchestra, and I think they only released 2 albums and an EP, and this is really their well-known album here in Canada anyway, self-titled, from 1984. I knew 3 songs off of this. They had a radio hit with Listen to the Radio song, and then 2 other songs, Might As Well Be on Mars and Cherry Street. Is it Cherry Street? Cherry Beach Express? Yeah, Cherry Beach Express. were the three known songs from this. They're sort of a Canadian new wave band, which really had just a couple of minor hits. The song "Listen to the Radio," and they had a song called "Weekend Come Alive" from an EP that got some play as well. Pocket Orchestra. Pukka apparently, from what I've read, means top notch in I guess it's Punjabi or Punjab. Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but it means top notch orchestra. And a band that I've got quite a few albums for is the band Yes. This is a live album they released. You'll recognize the cover. They had their big hit in the 80s, Owner of a Lonely Heart, which was from the album 90125. This is called 9012 Live, the solos. So a play on that title. And it's not a proper live album. It's a single disc, only about 35 minutes in length. It has two full-length versions of songs from the 90125 album, and then the rest of it, as the title implies, the solos. It's solos taken from songs that they performed live. So there's some pieces from some older Yes material, The Fish, I believe, and forget what else. Oh, the one song that I really like on here is Chris Squire is one of my favorite bass players, and he does an amazing version, no pun intended, of Amazing Grace on here, which reminds me a lot of the approach that Jimi Hendrix took to Star Spangled Banner. But this is not bad. This is not essential by any means, but if you like Yes and you like the 90125 album, then you might like this. Then the next album, I've got a few albums from Aretha Franklin. This is her album from the 80s, Who's Zoomin' Who. Very 80s sounding, but the vocals are fantastic on this. There was two big hits from here. Freeway of Love was a big hit, which has a guest appearance from Clarence Clemens, and Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, in which she... it was a collaboration with the Eurythmics. So very 80s sounding, especially in the drum sound, but a decent album if you can pick it up for cheap. And of course, you know, what's not to love about Aretha Franklin's vocals. And then next one, an album that was shown recently by Hannah, whose channel is the Omaha Introvert. She showed this album, Green Thoughts by the Smithereens, and when I saw this, I said, yeah, I gotta get that. I didn't have any Smithereens in my vinyl collection. I have Smithereens sort of greatest hits and a live greatest hits on CD, but wanted to pick this up, especially after she showed it. So this is some great power pop Smithereens. Only a Memory was the only song that I'm familiar with from this album. And next I have a few online purchases. The first one is a bit of a grail for me, which is an album that I played a lot back in the mid-90s on CD, and one of my favorite bands, especially from that time. I've shown before Teenage Fan Club Bandwagon-esque. Love that album. That was definitely a grail when I got that reissue of that. And I picked up the reissue of their third album, Grand Prix, which is some amazing sort of Birdsy, Big Star kind of stuff. Again, from 1995, their third album, and probably one of their great albums. So really happy to get this. Then the next slew of albums are all Clash related. The first is, of course, a classic, London Calling. I saw a list, it was a top 10 list of albums that you must own on vinyl, and this was the only one that I actually didn't have from that list on vinyl. I've had the CD for years, but I finally decided to get this on vinyl. What I don't like about this is, you know, it's a double album, obviously, as you all know, but no gatefold on this. They slip both of them into here. But this is a proper double album in that it's, you know, it's got proper length, proper number of songs. It's not sort of a single album that was split over two records. So London Calling, The Clash. And then I also picked up the Clash live album, live at Shea Stadium. This is, again, a single disc. This is them opening up for The Who at Shea Stadium on the Combat Rock tour. There's 14 songs on here. Plays much like a greatest hits live. And this sounds, quite good. It's live recording from the 80s, and it was a shortened set, obviously, because they were opening up for The Who, but this is fantastic. I didn't have any live Clash on vinyl as well. And then Clash related, we have Mick Jones, after leaving the Clash, formed Big Audio Dynamite. This is their second album, number 10, Upping Street. I think most people know their first album called This Is Bad. This is their follow-up to that. This is an awesome album. It has the song Come On Every Beatbox, which I think some of you may know. This was the hit from this album, if you will. And Joe Strummer was involved with this album with the rest of the band. And then finally, speaking of Joe Strummer, I got this double live album, Joe Strummer and the I keep saying this wrong. Mescaleros, live from 2002, November 2002. Unfortunately, it was about a month after this album, or after this show, that Joe Strummer passed away in December 2002. This is a fantastic live album that I got, double live album that I got on Amazon. It was only like $10 plus shipping, so it came out to like $12-13. You can see the packaging on this. It's kind of skimpy, but for $10 for a double live album, and it sounds fantastic. It's live in Acton, I think Acton Town Hall, London. 16 songs. This piece of paper is just a picture of Joe Strummer on the other side, and then on this side you can see the song, the track list. It's split between 8 Strummer solo songs and 8 Clash songs, and Mick Jones did guest on I think the final 3 songs on here, so it's pretty significant for that, and just to have some Joe Strummer live is amazing. Okay, that's it guys, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you next time.